Hi, everybody. This is Steve. Good to be back with you. I have about 90% of my voice, and I wanted to get back online with you here on Monday Morning Musings. I'm going to be starting a series on one of the major topics of Scripture that is often missed, overlooked entirely, and its significance missed. There are 3 or 4 huge themes that run throughout all Scripture, and particularly the New Testament. The number one topic that the Scripture makes reference to is violence. More references to violence than anything else in the Bible. That should tell us something, and it's just not what this series is going to be about. If you asked a typical believer what were the 2 major challenges that the early church faced, your most common response would be legalism, because of the impact of Paul's letter to Galatia. The next one would be Gnosticism, because of Paul's letters to Ephesians and Colossians, and because of what was going on at the time. But there was an issue that is so difficult for us to wrap our heads around that divided the apostles, that brought the apostles into conflict. And you know what that issue was? Meals. Eating together. Can you imagine any modern church having a split over who you ate a meal with? We don't understand culturally the significance of sharing a meal with in an ancient Near Eastern context. So we are going to talk about it for several weeks, because if you come to the Scriptures and you don't understand what's going on behind the scenes at a meal, you are going to miss a lot, and you're going to misunderstand a lot. What was the thing? What was the issue that brought the Jerusalem establishment, the Jerusalem apostles, into conflict with Paul in Antioch? What was the trigger event? There was a greater event, there's a bigger issue, and then there's an issue that triggered the greater issue. Well, the greater issue was the Jew-Gentile divide. And it was a big, big problem. How does this thing that has happened to us Jews, this resurrection, this Jesus and his kingdom message, he told us to take it to all the world. How do we get the Gentiles in on this? It was a all-consuming question. And if you don't understand the hostility that Jews held to non-Jews and to Samaritans, you're not going to understand the Scriptures. Many rabbis taught that redemption is only for Israel. The quote, this is a rabbinical quote, "There is no ransom for the Gentiles." And so now you have this resurrected man that you call Lord telling you that you need to take the message to these people who the rabbis say there is no ransom for. Some rabbis said that to eat a meal with a Gentile is worthy of a capital punishment, of being executed, just by eating a meal with them. Some rabbis taught that the Gentile nations were constitutionally created by God as unredeemable. They are constitutionally defective, beyond reach, beyond repair, by nature. By nature, they're not able to be redeemed. I mean, in our world, we would consider that outrageous bigotry, outrageous racism. I mean, we need to understand that that is the world that Jesus was born into. And that's the world that he brought the kingdom message into. We need to understand the headwinds that he was against, that even the apostles had difficulty grasping. How do we know? Because at Antioch, the event that triggered the greater issue, Jew-Gentile issue, was Peter having a meal with Gentiles. Think about it. Can you imagine a modern day church split over who you eat with? You cannot read the scriptures, particularly the New Testament scriptures, particularly the Gospel of Luke, and not see that table fellowship, who you eat with, is a theme that's repeated over and over in story after story after story. And what was one of the accusations against Jesus? He eats with people who he deemed less than. So in this series, we're going to kind of break it up into 3 sections. They won't be lengthy at the beginning. The last one will be lengthy. We're going to talk, I just want to present to you how all Mideastern and Near Eastern people viewed sharing a meal together. And then we're going to talk about the implications in Judaism, which I've already hinted at. Some stories in the Old Testament, the Jewish scriptures, that are so hard to understand, they seem crazy to us. If you understand how they felt about things, it makes the story comprehensible, even if it's outrageous for us culturally. And then the last thing we're going to do, we're going to look at how Jesus conformed to the meals of his time and how he turned them upside down. As he so often did, he did both. When we read the scriptures, the New Testament scriptures, we're dealing with a Hellenized form of Judaism primarily. So it's not like, oh, everybody's following Leviticus and everybody's just, every Jew is the same. That's nonsense. Can't get into that today. There's no such thing as the Jews believed. Judaism believed. There's all sorts of brands and variations of beliefs within Judaism, just like there are today. But how they viewed sharing a meal, what were the implications? How Jesus entered into that world of Hellenized Judaism in a Greek cultural background in a Roman world. Because some of the things that were culturally Roman, they followed, they did. But some of the things that were culturally Roman, Jesus, I can't think of a word to say it, he blew their minds. He turned their world upside down. In our culture, I think it's the declaration that says, we believe these things to be self-evident, that all humans, men, are created equal. That was not their world. That would have never entered their minds. And so the issue of meals and sharing a meal and who you ate with had tremendous social, political, theological, and religious implications. And over the next several weeks, I don't know how long it's going to take, we're going to look at those issues and see where Jesus, particularly when it comes to the Eucharist, we're going to work our way to the Eucharist, just turned their world upside down. How well it is said in the scripture. These people have turned our world upside down. Indeed, they did. And a lot of it had to do with who you had a meal with. Hard for us to understand. Like I titled this, it's just a sandwich. Nope, it wasn't just a sandwich for them. So that's where we're going for the next few weeks. I'll see you the next time.